everybody. Welcome to the new Thursday edition of the TruthBusters here on the Triple T Radio Network. Remember, you can always get us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube under Triple T Radio, the TruthBusters. I am Jon Stewart, and with us always is one of the most illustrious producers in all of America and all of the world, Nick London. And also, of course, joining us is the pilot of this crazy, hyperbolic, conspiratorial airplane, Cueball Carmichael. Q, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, John. How's Florida?
Florida's good. Yeah, I forgot in my intro for, we're always from New Brunswick. Q's in North Carolina. And this week, we're in the bunker in Jacks Beach, Florida. I'm a very best friend helping him out with some doctor's appointments. He's got a bad foot here, and his wife had to take my nephew to Ole Miss. Happens to be, and remember, I reminded him before he left, do you realize you're the only person on campus that can say, I have an uncle that wrestled in that Coliseum? That was my first match for Jerry Jarrett, was Ole Miss.
Wow.
So, but he kind of laughed and rolled his eyes. But Dave and I, my friend here, have been best friends since Memphis State days in 1985. And you're old when your college has changed its name.
Right.
Now the University of Memphis. So all of the stuff Dave and I owned and bought in 85 is like, what's Memphis State?
Right.
And it was so funny. Just a real quick thing. I dropped Dave off and I came back for a couple hours. Turn on ESPN University, and what's showing University of Memphis versus SMU like 4 years ago, and they just kicked the crap out of SMU, who was ranked 16. Memphis was ranked 24. So like the gods are hovering over in this house today. It's been awesome. I've had bouts of deja vu today. So, and my friend and I mean, our spleens are hurting from laughing. I mean, it's just it's one gag reel after another. So.
That's a good time. Speaking of colleges, I when I found out that West Texas State was now West Texas A&M University, I had to call Manny Fernandez because that's where he went to West Texas State. And I had to get 20 minutes of an earful of him going ballistic about them changing their name.
Oh, okay. Yeah, him, Manny and I should have a beer together. We could commiserate.
There's no such thing as a beer with Manny.
I drank it with them at stayouts in Stone Park in Illinois.
Look, Manny and I, for years, we had went out together, and we had one rule. We closed the bar. If we go into a bar, we don't go to another one. But the last bar we go to, we close the bar.
Right.
So
I love me, Manny. I love me some Manny Fernandez. That cat is
insane.
You gotta love a guy who's a gentleman, who's nice, doesn't fuck with you. In wrestling terms, it's always
right.
And could literally kill anyone that tried to harm you in the known worlds. I mean, what a better drinking guy.
He's been shot once and stabbed 3 times.
Yeah.
And survived.
Old school. Hey, Q, we've done this a lot, and we did it on the first show, so let's do it. We always let our show go take a veer to the right for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about TruthBusters. Let's talk about the colleges that produce the most pro wrestlers in the past 40 years. So I think it is West Texas State, correct?
Yes.
Tito Santana, Tully Blanchard. Did Barry Windham play there?
I believe so. Dick Murdoch did too.
Dick Murdoch, Manny. Holy cow.
Terry Funk.
That's
Incredible.
awesome.
What's in the water up there?
That's amazing. It's like the high school that produced the most wrestlers would be Robbinsdale in Minnesota. Henning, Rick Rude, Kurt Henning. Yeah, yep. Kurt Henning, Rick Rude, Nord, 2 or 3 other guys. So what about another, like the University of Memphis produced me. Do you remember a guy named Brian Lee?
Yes, of course.
Am I saying that right? Jerry Lawler went to Memphis State, didn't play football, of course. Honky Tonk Man graduated from Memphis State. and there was one other wrestler that was from Memphis. So that's 5 or 6 guys right there. I can't think of any other, like University of Minnesota would be Flair and Brunzie and Patera maybe. And Greg Gagne, but Greg finished in Wyoming. Can you something like that?
Well, Brian Lee was the first guy I ever saw wear a bandana like this on the front of his head.
Okay, yeah.
All the time. He always had one of them on. It was crazy.
Yeah, good guy.
Yeah, great guy. Yeah.
That's so, I always thought like they would always put, like Bill Apter would put together, if we had to take all the wrestlers that played college or pro football and make a dream team together, and you got Dick the Bruiser and Wahoo. Do you know how good Wahoo? Well, first of all, where did Wahoo play? Did you know where he played college ball? I don't remember. Was it in Oklahoma?
Oklahoma.
Oh,
Oklahoma, I think. Oklahoma State, maybe.
Ric Flair said he was incredible. Did you ever read up on him? Was that true that he was that good?
I wrestled Wahoo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I knew. No, look, he was. He could have done whatever he wanted physically. He was gifted. And listen, the first time I wrestled him, here's what I did. I said, all right, why don't you do this, Wahoo? I'll do this. Chop me, I'll bump. Chop me, I'll bump. Chop me, I'll bump. He goes, are you sure you want to take 3 of those? I'm like, yeah, sure. Brother, the first one took me off my feet and landed me on the back of my head.
Wow.
And I'm like thinking to myself, I got to take 2 more of these.
Right.
My man's hands were not only big, but they were as hard as stone. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, that won't be taking 3 of those again ever.
Yeah. Ric Flair described Wahoo athletically almost like tantamount like Jim Thorpe. Remember Jim Thorpe? Yeah. Turn of the century. Who was, they said he could have been one of the best baseball players ever. Won like 7 medals in the decathlon and then played foot, was just like an awesome one of the best punters ever in the NFL. I mean, just something like guys like that are just like subhuman,
Yeah, exactly. He always said it was the Indian blood.
Yeah.
And he was so incredibly physically gifted at anything he did, even fishing. He would always go and catch fish. And when everybody else wasn't catching fish, Wahoo was catching fish.
Yeah.
I mean, it was anything he did.
Like the golden touch.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
You knew him. I mean, one of the nicest guys in the history of the planet. I mean,
met him twice through the AWA. Yeah, nice guy.
Gentle giant. Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, him and Manny had some AWA matches, didn't they?
Oh, God, yeah.
That's the story. That's the story Manny always loved to tell me. Wahoo and him were getting into it, and there was this fan that was jaw-jacking. So Wahoo takes Manny outside, beats him up, picks him up. He said, duck this punch. And he threw a punch, and Manny ducked it, and Wahoo knocked the guy out. Yeah, true story.
I mean, the lawsuits that the wrestlers had back in the day with fans, and oh my God. I mean,
Manny was a heel, so he couldn't have got away with it, but Wahoo could, and Wahoo went up afterwards and says, man, I'm sorry,
Oh my God.
I didn't mean to. And the guy goes, just give me an autographed picture, and it's okay.
I got hit by Wahoo.
I know, right? I broke my orbital.
Probably made T-shirts.
I broke my orbital bone, but I just want a signed picture.
Hey, Q, I got a question. This has always been bothering me right now with pro wrestlers, football and stuff. Now, there was a question on the Corny drive-through about pro wrestlers are marks for NFL guys and stuff like that. Okay, and promoters, and I think that's true. I mean, you've been on the road more than me almost. I mean, with the amount of guys you travel with and stuff like that. You know a weird thing that I realized like about 5-6 months ago? It's not a big deal, folks. I'm not going to say anything earth-shattering. I wanted to ask Cueball this and give me your answer if you can, if you've got one. I don't know. I noticed that in the 30-something years of being a pro wrestler, I traveled with a bunch of NFL guys: Del Wilkes, Brian Pillman, Tito Santana, Hacksaw Duggan, Dick the Bruiser was my wrestling manager. I mean, my promoter managed me for a year and a half, traveled with him. A couple of other guys that played in the NFL. even with guys like me that played college football and stuff like that, or guys that were really good in high school.
I played semi-pro for.
Yeah,
you know that. Right?
Yeah, I know you have some good stories of semi-pro ball.
Oh my God.
But a lot of guys don't talk about wrestling, about football.
Right.
Like, meaning they don't. I experienced all the guys that I was around that played football from high school up to the pros.
Talk about
it, and I don't understand. I don't understand that. What do you got to? First of all, did you notice that thinking back? And if so, do you have a theory why? Most guys, I can remember back in '59 in the Sugar Bowl and cue ball, I took the ball. Like a good football player would do, and every football player in wrestlers were great football players, but they never talked about it a lot. Do you have any theory on that? Or, seriously.
I think they just left it behind, man. And I think they didn't want to feel like they were egomaniacal around the boys. I think that was part of it. And, but
hey, Nick, if we have the ding, 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 great answer button, you should be playing it now. That is a great answer.
Nick, do we need a commercial?
No, not yet, guys.
Oh, okay.
But no, Q, that's a really good answer.
Nick,
that's a really good answer.
Well, I'll tell you my funny football story, and then you can laugh.
Okay.
So I'm playing for the Binghamton Jets. Now, back then in 78, 9, 80, they were actually a farm club for the New York Jets. I was playing defensive end, middle linebacker, and I was the punter. So my coach says, look, you're 6'1", you're 215 pounds. They're going to come up. The Jets are going to come up and try out some guys. They're going to be here in 2 months. You got to put on some weight. Now, I ran about a 4.6, 4.7 40. I was fast.
Wow.
Yeah, I was fast. I don't ever remember getting beat in the 40-yard dash ever. So I started bulking up, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Back then, you had to eat wheat germ and take the tuna fish and rinse the oil off it and all that stuff and heavy. And I put on about 22 pounds. Now, I looked jacked, but when they came up for the tryouts, the first thing they did is they eliminated guys by having them run the 40, right?
Yeah, that's the litmus test.
Yes. So we do the 40. And I'm crushing me. So I'm like, they crushed me. So I wait, and I go up to the guy that's got the clipboard for the Jets. I said, what was my time in the 40? He's like, Jackson, right? I go, yeah. He goes, well, let me put it this way. We timed everybody else with a stopwatch. We timed you with a calendar.
Ouch.
It was like a 5.340. That was unbelievable.
Done.
I wanted to tell him, but I didn't. So let's segue to a commercial. When we come back, we'll talk about the main topic, and it's missing persons from the national parks. You don't want to miss it. It's incredible. So we got to pay some bills, guys. So we're going to roll a commercial. Stick with us. Don't forget, you can also go over to YouTube and catch us at Triple T Radio, one word, space, live. And you'll pull up on YouTube, and you'll go right to TruthBusters, and you can watch us right there. Please hit like and subscribe, because that helps us out immensely over there on YouTube. Once again, Triple T Radio, all one word, space, live, and you can find us over there playing live too. Go to commercial, Nikki. Yeah, I was humiliated in that 40-yard dash.
And we're back.
The TruthBusters, everybody. This is where we go down TruthBuster lane. And it's going to be not their truth, but the truth. Jon, we got an interesting topic. Why don't you lead us off? Because I know that you have been on this literally for years.
Yeah. Tonight we're going to be talking about, this is kind of interesting because we don't have them on the show. And certainly there's no trademark or, we're talking about something that he has made public, and has a series out of books and on YouTube. And Cueball and I actually tried to turn this into a docu-series drama reality show also, but the person wasn't interested. But a very nice guy, a high character. Tonight we're talking about the extremely bizarre disappearances of people, especially in our national parks here in the United States of America. And when I say disappearing, we will explain as we get into this topic. You're going to want to turn up the volume on your iPhone or computer, where you're listening, because you're not going to believe what the police reports and the rescue reports and the lack of information from the national parks. Keep that in mind, that there is out there. We are, of course, talking about his name is David Paulides. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He is a former detective from Michigan. I found him to be very highly credible, a good soul, one of those guys, salt of the earth type of guy. And in all of the books that I've read of his adventures, investigating this, and the YouTube shows where he has been on, numerous conspiracy shows and radio shows talking about this. But he was hired, I think, back in 1988 to investigate the disappearance of a young lady that went missing from who lived in Michigan. And she disappeared in, I believe, Yosemite National Park. And he thought it was a little unusual. I mean, the first little check mark, if we had could do the graphics right now, would be just this woman just up and vanished. And so he went to Yosemite, and as he was conducting a very thorough investigation, all above board, notifying all of the local authorities of who he was, and I'm sure passing his business card around to the local police and forestry divisions and whatnot. He was approached by two forest rangers. And forest rangers, Q, you probably agree with this, are kind of like state troopers. They are square, it is above reproach. They are, it is all by the book. So for them to kind of, I would think, break protocol, they approached former detective David Paulides, and they took him to the side and they said, there are some really, really strange things going on in Yosemite. Really strange. And he said, well, lay it on me. And they basically said the same thing about this lady or this young woman, is that people from children to adults, and we're going to get into it, are vanishing feet from their group, their parents, their loved ones, their significant others, their guides. And they can't explain it. And it was a really useful tip that really set David off on a 25-year plus journey of something's really going on in the parks. He calls, David Paulides calls the State Department, or am I right, Q? Does the State Department handle the fort? Okay. He calls the State Department in Washington and asks them, can I, as a, bona fide private detective and former police officer, and I'm sure it's public record because it's the government, can I get a list of the missing people from the national parks for the past 20 years? We don't keep that list, they tell him. And he found that funny because they keep a list of movies filmed in national parks, the depth of the water of the lakes in the national park, the amount of bison, the amount of deer, the amount of antelopes, how many people visit a year, the growth of the dollar amount spent in all the national parks versus the the gross national product, all of these statistics, except how many people have been missing? How many people have gone missing? So, Q, why don't you take it over? If you got a couple of stories, I have them too. If you want to segue into this of what this guy of researching for 25 years has found in his investigations.
Well, one of the interesting things is he went as far as filing Freedom of Information Acts, and that's when he found out the National Park Service, the federal government, doesn't keep any statistics on missing people. My theory on that is if you keep statistics, you have to admit it. If you admit it, you have to become accountable. So I don't think they have a list. We know they have a list.
Yeah.
Agents are not going to share it with a FOIA or anything else, Freedom of Information Act. One of the things that has been noticed with his investigations, and it's an emerging pattern, is missing persons are clustered around bodies of water in national parks, which is really super strange. On top of that, bodies are found weeks and months later in areas that were thoroughly searched. And search dogs do this crazy thing where they actually go a few feet, they go in circles, and they say it set down or lay down. They don't pick up a track or a scent. It's almost like they're on it and the person disappeared.
Right.
And these people, give you an idea, they're disappearing in places that are mountainous peaks, and there's paths and trails that people take. They're not going to go up the side of a mountain in Yosemite or in Colorado, one of their parks. You can't go up the side of a mountain. You have to walk down a certain path. So somebody can only wander so far. But what is strange to me is that little Dior, the little 2-year-old that went missing
Right.
in an national park. And these people were 7 miles off the main road at a campsite. Somebody turned back around, and this 2-year-old boy was gone. And when his body was found, it was found like 20-something miles away, or 13, well, you know the number, so many miles away in a body of water, and it took them 3 weeks to find it, but it looked like he'd only been put in the water days before.
Yeah, and he was well fed, no vitamin deficiencies. He wasn't dirty.
His clothes were clean. It's like somebody had him, took care of him. He wasn't sexually molested, took care of him, and then he keeled over and they put him in a body of water. I mean, stuff is so strange, John. When you look into this, we're talking about over 16,000 people missing from national parks. I mean, the one place you don't want to go on vacation is, guess where? A national park. But it's just amazing the way these search dogs react, and the way that one of the guy's friends, Joe, I forget his last name, his friends formed a search party. They had planes with infrared, so they pick up heat signature. They had ATVs. They had people on horseback. They had 200 people walking, and they covered this area thoroughly, only to find this guy's body 2 months later in the same place they had covered, and again didn't show 2 months worth of decomp, and his clothes were completely clean, like somebody had washed them for him. I mean, this stuff just gets stranger and stranger and stranger as it goes. I mean, it's at a point where it's an epidemic, and some people are wearing GPS devices, and the GPS device just stops tracking.
Right. Another anomaly. Right.
Yeah, another massive anomaly.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, when you talked about the clothes, it sparked me to think about not one, but several dozens of little kids. And listen, follow along here, folks. They are 5 feet in back of their parents going down a trail with a high, hill or, cliffs to the left of them, and the hill going down on the right of them. And the parents turn around. There's no noise. There's no broken trees. There's no scream. The child is gone. They send search parties. 2 weeks later, the child is found 600 feet above the elevation of the trail on top of a plateau. And you ask a parent, if you had a 4 or 5 year old in the woods and they got lost, where would they go? Up the hill or down the hill? 100% of I'm a parent. My kids are lazy. They would go down the hill. They wouldn't start climbing. They are found on plateaus and hills and cliffs that mountain rescue people have a hard time getting to. Let me repeat that. The 5, 6, 3-year-old children are found 5, 6, 7, 800 feet above the elevation of a known path. Mountain climbing rescue workers are almost impossible time of getting to the children. They find the children. It varies, but here are some of the known instances. They find the children with their skeleton remains or the body against the tree, the pants all the way down to the ankles. They find them with the shirt on backwards, the pants on backwards, the shoes on different feet, like somebody knew that the person should be dressed, but not really sure about left or right or front and back. I'd like to get into that later in our discussion. They find oftentimes that the clothes are folded neatly, like they've been laundered, so to speak, by someone sitting next to the child. They find the gym shoes, mostly sneakers or children's little boots. Now, if it was a predator, you would find that chewed up because that would probably be a way a predator would drag a child away. Oh, by the way, in 100% of the cases since 1988, 100% of the cases, no drag marks by a predator. If you're playing at home, make sure you want to write this down. So they don't find the shoes. The gym shoes are pristine. Not that the child has been traversing the woods for 2 weeks and in mud and dirt and grass and sticks and rocks and dust and you name it.
And
the gym shoes are pristine.
This has happened many times to many missing people. The shoes are in pristine condition, almost like they went and bought a brand new pair of exactly the same shoes and put them out there. That's right. So bizarre to me. Right, and so again, so they bring the dogs out. The dogs don't want to. They come up to a place and that's it. They don't want to continue any further. Other bizarreness of these disappearances. 73-year-old father of a hunter, and they were out with their friends hunting. They brought the father with them. He had chronic pulmonary. He could not emphysema. They were emphatic. This guy could not walk more than 10, 20 feet without stopping, taking a 5-minute break. They leave him at the campsite for maybe 7 minutes. They come back. He is gone. And he's not 50 feet away or 10 feet away or falling forward of law. This guy is gone. 10 guys go out looking for him, and cover miles within minutes, and they can't find this 73-year-old man that literally can't breathe. Right. There was another instance of another elderly parent that went with, and he was sitting on a tree stump, and the guy said he heard a metal clap, like a massive bear trap type noise, and that father disappeared. And Q, you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. This one, they had like 7 or 8 people on ATV, 150 people, searchers came out, mountain rescue, helicopters with the forward infrared looking camera. I mean, just a massive search, and never found this elderly hunter that was always taught, if something's wrong, stay put, shoot your gun 2 or 3 times. The best way to find somebody who's lost. We've all been taught that. I've been taught that as a hunter. Seconds apart. And as Cueball, I want you to pick up on this. And as Q talked about a couple of weeks ago, the son of this elderly man mentioned that, interestingly, people have gone
missing and been found. But this time, the FBI showed up. Now, why is the FBI showing up to what would be a park district, forest preserve, DNR, Department of Natural Resource matters, sheriff? Q, you're a police officer. You can, maybe the sheriff would have jurisdiction, maybe even the state police. The FBI shows up, and that was not on federal property. So, we got about 20 minutes left. What's going on here? You're cagier than me. What's the FBI showing up for?
Well, my thinking is this. My conclusion has come to, and if you've ever heard of the acronym DUMBS, DUMBS, it stands for Deep Underground Military Bases. They're used for.
I never thought about that.
They're in the mountains, obviously. They're deep underground. They're military bases. They are believed to be used for experimentation, not just on animals, but on people. And we know about the underground bunker by the airport in Denver, why the Denver airport is 60 miles out in the middle of nowhere, why construction were hired to do certain jobs, but not all the jobs. We all know that. So the deep underground bunker system, I believe, is true. However, I do not believe it's connected with the federal government. And I'll tell you why. You go on any show, and I'm talking about shows that they actually have pictures of unidentified flying objects or aerial phenomenon, whatever you want to call it. You find these things over two places. You find them over bodies of water and over mountains. And what a great place to hide in plain sight than inside an inaccessible mountain range. Nobody's going to come up there. Nobody's going to be looking for you.
Point.
You can take whoever you want, do whatever you want. But I want you guys to research this intelligently and go on and look at actual pictures of UFOs, not fake stuff, real stuff. And you will find that they're around mountains. Now, if you go back to 2013, there was a massive earthquake, 2012 or 13, there was a massive earthquake that shook Virginia all the way down to Florida. This was a huge, huge deal. It was all through the Carolinas. It was really bad. I mean, in Northern Virginia, near the Pentagon, buildings shook, windows broke. It was an extremely unusual and bad earthquake for the East Coast. The guy that ran ATIP, Lou Elizondo, has researched and found that 3 days before, strange metal on metal noises from the air that were unseen, that were so loud that people at an actual football game or baseball game heard the noises.
Okay.
It sounds like you've seen War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. It sounds like the sounds the alien made in that. So they heard this in Florida. People also identified UFOs over the water on the same day. The next day, they're hearing that same noise in Georgia and South Carolina. Again, UFOs are spotted now over the water, but also in the Great Smoky Mountains. The next day is the earthquake. UFOs are seen off the coast of Virginia and Norfolk by the military, and then they're seen again in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Within 2 hours, that massive earthquake hit. And this is a unique thing because they've been spotted by over 1,000 people, heard by several thousand in the area with that noise. Then they disappear into a mountain range that has the most horrific earthquake in the history of the East Coast. All coinciding with each other. Now, I've always told Rhiannon, look, the best place to hide is to hide in plain sight. People who escape the U.S. Marshals and the FBI, they don't go to Mexico. They don't go to Cuba. They hide right here in plain sight. When you go into witness relocation program, you're moved, but you're actually hiding in plain sight somewhere. That is the best place to hide. That's where the U.S. Marshals want you to hide. Let me tell you something about the best place for anything aerial phenomenon-wise to hide. in the ocean. We know more about Mars and the moon than we know about our own ocean.
We've
We
said
know
that. Yeah. Right.
Mariana Trench is 7 miles deep. The Norfolk Canyon is 4 miles deep. We also know that we have a massive amount of mountain ranges that are inaccessible by climbers or anything all throughout the United States. Those are the places where the most aerial phenomena that can't be explained by the leader of ATIP over his course of 10 years running that program.
Right.
This is where aerial phenomena is found. Mountains and water. Submersible. I believe that there's some type of base, and hey, maybe it's the federal government doing experiments with people. Maybe it is. Maybe we know that they have massive. Look, there's a lot of them abandoned. You could go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and where they see the Mothman, there's these massive underground caves in the mountains that were military bunkers. They're still stocked with 500,000 cans of candy that never expires. A cracker that you take out is still crunchy until you take it out in the air, and then it turns to powder. So there's literally hundreds of military bunkers in mountains that we know about. How many hundreds or thousands are there out there that we don't know about? And are they all ours, or could they be someone else's? By someone else's, I mean someone non-terrestrial. That is the question that plagues me, that makes me think, that drives me to do massive amounts of research about actual flying, UFOs or aerial phenomena, where they're seen, mountain ranges, oceans, the places that they can go into and hide in plain sight. It's unbelievable. We know in Tennessee there's a cave system that we've never found the end of yet. It's so deep and so long. We've only got 22 miles into it. We suspect it goes another 70 miles down into the earth. What could be living or hiding in there? We've all heard about the big circle in Antarctica. There is a no-fly zone for even military pilots. It's a 3 football field wide circular hole into the polar ice that has no bottom apparently. But yet not even military rescue flights are allowed to fly over to save somebody's life. These things are the things that plague me. How can we explain these? The federal government won't take responsibility for the people missing in a national park, because if they take responsibility, they're forced to act. And if they're forced to act, they're going to be held accountable. I called the governor of Colorado's office this afternoon, and I asked if I could speak to the governor. He wasn't in, coincidentally. So then I asked if I could speak to the press secretary. I was put through to somebody who identified themselves as Roger and said that he can handle my questions. And the question was, listen, we have a show on YouTube called TruthBusters, and I'm one of the hosts, and I'd like to get the governor's position on all the missing people from the national parks in Colorado. He says, some of those are open investigations. We have no comment on them. Thank you very much for calling. Click. Yeah.
Your tax dollars going at work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, marijuana is legal out there, so who knows what he had for lunch. Just saying.
Right.
But yeah, I got nowhere. And I wish I could hold my phone up and show you that I actually dialed the number, but
I believe you. Hey, hold that thought. We're gonna try and narrow this down. I've got about 7 or 8 possibilities, and we're going to do almost like a speed round and intelligently go through these. So we're going to take a break, right, Nick? Want a break? Yeah, we're going to take a break. We're going to pay some bills. Stay with us. TruthBusters, we're talking about the missing people phenomenon in our national parks. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Buy some merchandise.
And we're back. TruthBusters Thursday, new time, new place, new day. Thursday edition of the TruthBusters. We hope that you are looking up at us in the past shows at Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It's Triple T Radio, TruthBusters Live. You can buy some merchandise. Please click like and subscribe to our show. That helps us out tremendously with our viewership and our owners in New York. Boy, does that take that monkey off our back. You've heard our comments about those people. But anyways, we are back. We are talking about Missing 411, the series, the lifelong 25-year investigation of homicide detective David Paulides, who has uncovered a bizarre phenomenon of people, thousands, 16,000 already, missing, just vanishing in our national parks. Really interesting, and more so, really bizarre. Joining me back, as always, is Cueball Carmichael. And Q, you gave us a really great, dissertation before the break. You mentioned about the rocks and the mountains and the boulders. One last thing, and I think I've highlighted, or we have highlighted all the bizarreness, folding clothes and the gym shoes on foot and wrong foot. But one thing David Paulides noticed is that a high percentage of these disappearances are happening around boulder fields. And I know that sounds like a horse running at Belmont tomorrow, but boulder fields, like a big field of giant boulders. And, he didn't think much of that, but being a thorough investigator, he started to, Google it and research it and go to the library and find out if there's anything to do with people disappearing around fields of large boulders or rocks. And he was stymied to find out that this is something in a phenomenon that has happened in Europe, in European folklore. And, folklore starts with some kind of smoke, some kind of fire, those stories and those myths of, people were taught for hundreds of years, thousands of years almost, from the Middle Ages to Dark Ages, up until, 100, 150 years ago, that there is evil that live in the boulder fields. It's just simple as that.
Yep.
And you can take away the myth, the mythology, the hyperbole, and say, but wait a minute. Again, it goes back to my Bigfoot belief with the Native American Indians. There was 5 million things to warn your Native American child in North America to be scared of. Mudslides, flash floods, cougars, bears, other predators, other tribes.
Wendigo.
You don't have to scare them with a fake Bigfoot tail. And so you don't have to scare somebody, about going into the boulder field. So I think there's something there. There's some kind of drawing power, for lack of a better word, forgive me, associated with boulder fields. And, we've talked about it on previous shows, granite, quartz, how they're still discovering the powers of those. Power meaning like literally like metaphysical powers in quartz and granite and other types of stone. And so that's something for us and the viewers to keep in mind as we move forward. We got about 10 minutes left, and I'm going to run down the possibilities of what this could be, because even David Paulides does not give he doesn't even really give an opinion. I don't know if I like that about him or that technique, but I respect that. So let's talk about vortexes, black holes to, alternate universes. That might explain the absolute vanishing, but the parents are walking in front of the children first. So if there's a vortex, you're walking through that doorway, so to speak, and that doesn't really explain the folded clothes, the gym shoes. Got any thoughts about a vortex being the possible culprit?
Well, there were two hikers in Yosemite, and you can look this up. And as they were going up a hill, the guy watched his friend disappear in front of him into thin air.
I never knew that.
Yeah,
Okay.
he ran up the mountain. He looked for him, and about 37 minutes later, 2 miles up the mountain, he finds his friend on the ground, alive, clothes tattered but still intact, not a wound on his body, and looked up at him and said, "How did I get here?"
So Vortex, I'm going to put a possibility. Check mark.
Possibility.
I did not hear that. I did hear a Bigfoot, a hunter who was interviewed on a Bigfoot show. He did say he experienced the most bizarre. He said it was like a doorway in front of him that mimicked like the Predator. You could see the trees behind him, but it was opaque. It was shimmering. And he thought for sure that this was some kind of, metaphysical or alternate universe, whatever. Okay. Predator animal. We talked about this a few minutes ago. There's no drag marks of a body. The shoes are intact. The clothes aren't torn apart. There's no blood. Folks, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I forgot to tell you. There's no blood anywhere. I mean, anywhere.
Not a drop.
Anywhere with these bodies. There's no blood loss to speak of. So I would say predator animal. Q, would you probably say scratch that one off our list, right? I got my list here.
And, interestingly enough, there's very little COD, as we call it, cause of death listed. Most of these are listed as undetermined.
Right. Good point. A serial killer. You and I are trying to get this reality docu-series off the ground of a serial killer in Chicago. And my God, I think you and I have earned our PhD in all the research. I've never read more psychological information than I feel like I was back in college getting my degree in counseling psychology. Serial killer. Why would you go all the way out into the woods and hide? And then how did you take the kid up 500 feet? Right? No way. No way.
Not the MO of a serial killer at all.
No, sir. Bigfoot. Now, David Paulides kind of hints, Q, I don't know if you knew this or not, hints at a possibility of Bigfoot, but I have not to this date heard anything of feet being found or seen any kind of weird creature or something like that. So I would have to research more of why David kind of is alluding to that. But go ahead.
We've seen too many people catch Bigfoot on camera, really caught Bigfoot on camera. Bigfoot is a typical, like most bears, black bears are called the ghosts of the woods because they will hide in plain sight. They will lay down. They will let you walk right by them. We've yet to see an aggressive Bigfoot in North America come after somebody.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I got to throw out, man.
Bigfoot out.
Yeah, gotta be.
Your last one that you just talked about, not the last one of our list, the Army and the Dumbs. How many people are going to come out as whistleblowers, deathbed confessions, and talk about, look, there's a tacit agreement between, alien races that are off planet, or I hate the fact that I have to water down,
No.
Yeah. That extraterrestrials from other solar systems, astronauts from other planets, okay, am I watered it down enough? Have a tacit agreement with the American government that we're going to do abductions, try not to kill anybody. It's going to be a little traumatic. We can, make them forget about it. Which leads me to the last one, which was aliens. Putting clothes on the wrong way means you have a understanding of human beings, but you're just not, I heard something 2 days ago. Oh, he's so smart that he doesn't even know how to pick out his own clothes. He's got the same clothes over and over because that's how his intelligence is so far beyond us that he doesn't worry about stuff like that. And I'm like, geez, that sounds like our topic. An alien that knows that humans wear clothes, but not really concerned how they really go on properly or what shoe goes on the right foot. So I I don't know. I'm really, and here's another thing. There was a hunter they found face down in a river, but he didn't drown. His cause of death was not. Folks, listen to this, because this I feel is someone that has been carried, helicoptered, levitated, dropped from a spacecraft, like many people, abductees claim. He was found face down in a river, but his cause of death was not drowning. He had no skin and muscle left on the bottom of his feet. His skeletal, the skeleton of his feet was showing. There is no chance in hell he could possibly walk. He even stand up, let alone walk. Yet he walked to the river, fell down in the river, but didn't drown as a cause of death. You know, come on, folks. So I don't know. I'm thinking possible vortex on some of these things, like the hunters, but with the kids disappearing behind the parents, I don't know. I'm thinking something that we just don't understand. I can't think of it any other way. And why they're returning the kids? Every abductee is said they've been returned to their bed. They've returned to their truck. So, aliens, this phenomenon, you do have aliens returning the bodies. Go ahead.
Right. And we do have to think that any society that is 100,000, 10,000, or 1,000,000 years older than ours has that kind of technology that we'll have in 10,000, 100,000, or 1,000,000 years.
Sure.
That can be cloaked. You can't see the ship, and it can use a tractor beam to abduct somebody in a second and put them back in a second. That technology exists possibly on any planet that had a civilization that started a mere 10 or 15 or 20,000 or 100,000 years ago. And let me tell you something, folks. 100,000 years in the history of Earth and the universe is but a minute of our show.
Blink of an eye.
Perspective. Yeah, exactly. My thinking is this. It's one of two things. And I believe it's the first. I believe, like you said, there's an agreement with the federal government and probably a race from another planet that has the technology to wipe us out in seconds, that we're just going to take people, put them back safe if we can. Another race may have made the same deal, but they're not returning them safely. Look, a few people are going to die, but we need to do this for our own society and for experimental purposes. Look, Earth could be a terrarium for otherworldly people. It could be
for
otherworldly people. Yeah. It could be a petri dish for otherworldly people. Yep. We don't know, but we do know this. 16,000 people don't disappear from national parks without a trace, or to be dropped back and placed in areas that make absolutely no physical, logical sense in a condition that is unexplainable by accident. We know that. So whoever's doing it is doing it. And look, if it was the military, they know to put the left shoe on the left foot, the right shoe on the right foot.
Thank you.
The pants on full back, the shirt inside out, but right side out.
Right.
That's what they would do. So to me, whoever's involved in this doesn't have a perfect knowledge of human clothing. But they have the knowledge of human beings. They're making an attempt to look like it's not something otherworldly. So they're dressing him and putting him back, dead or alive. So, you got to look at that and say, look, that's, as much as you don't want to admit it, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
And the other possibility is it's underground government bunkers, and they are doing experiments on us and what they want with us, and we're disappearing, or we're putting the Space Force, or whatever we're doing. But there's something going on that's greater than any of us talking or listening can actually comprehend, in my opinion.
And the fact that the national parks don't have a list of missing people is if folks, if that isn't the red flag of red flags, that something is going on greater beyond our imagination, then you're a better person than us, because that to me is the biggest red flag of them all. Q, you did an awesome job as always.
Bottom line, John, is it's a cover-up. It's a cover-up.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Because you're right. Because if you admit it, you got to take responsibility, and then you got to fix it. And we've said this before on our 6-part Alien series. They don't know how to fix it. I don't think there is a fix. So you're not going to know. They're not going to admit it. All right. That wraps us up for another edition. Thank you for joining us at our new day, a Thursday. The Triple T Radio Network on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Remember to click like, subscribe, buy some cool merchandise. We've got everything from women's underwear to coffee mugs to T-shirts. You'll see Q's beautiful bald head on it. For Nick London, our producer in New Brunswick, Cueball Carmichael, our pilot of this crazy conspiratorial plane, I am Jon Stewart from the satellite location in Jacksonville, Florida. Thank you to our friend David Kogel here for the facilities that he let us use today. Join us next week, next Thursday, same time, TruthBusters Live, where we bring you not their truth, but the truth. Thank you, everybody.